Everybody listen to We're Not Wizards, because we are the best, and we're not wizards, no matter what anybody says. Goodbye.
Hello and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for April. Because we're not doing the year anymore, because there's no point, it's April. And the reason it's April, you could say it's a kind of a Fool's Day. But that wouldn't be the best way to call this day, because in the beginning of April, there's going to be a game coming out. And it's not about, animals that are doing well. It's about animals that are on the brink. It's about animals that are potentially a little bit endangered. So joining me to talk about Endangered, which is coming to Kickstarter April 2nd, is a man with magic in his hands. I bring you Mr. Joe Hopkins, care of the Grand Gamers Guild. Hello, Joe.
Hello. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm good. Everybody's going to go magic in his hands. It's going to be like, what? He's got a wizard on the show. He's kind of got a wizard on the show, but we're going to kind of go into that in a little bit. Thanks for coming on. I'm pretty sure that Mark Spector from the Grand Gamers Guild just basically didn't tell you anything and didn't warn you at all about what to expect.
No. I'm just joining. It's have a good and thank you for having me. So
you're very, very welcome. You're very, very welcome. How are you feeling at the moment? I mean, it is kind of pretty much, this time kind of almost like next week.
It is next week. Yeah, I'm super excited. A little nervous, but yeah, I'm excited. Endangered is a game I've been working on for about 4 years now. So
Wow.
I'm happy it's finally coming to Kickstarter.
Well, that's good. That's good. For people who haven't listened before, thank you for listening, first of all. The reason that we do this is because I like doing it, and as long as it's legal and as long as it's fun and as long as you enjoy doing it, you might as well continue doing it. And the second reason that we do this is because you might recall Mark Spector was on the show a while ago about the Artemis project, and we had a conversation about that. And he emailed me and said, look, I've still got those incriminating photographs of you, so you've got to get Joe on the show. Otherwise, the whole wizard robe, hat, and wand pictures are just going to go public. So when you're faced with that level of blackmail, then your hands behind your back, you just have to get somebody like Joe on the show. None of that's true. I'd like to point it just in case. Don't at Mark over this because he will hate me. But we do want to find out a little bit. Obviously, we want to talk about Endangered the game, but we want to find out a little bit about kind of like your good self, kind of like kind of how you got into the hobby, kind of in the first place. So I guess we're going to have a little look back at the kind of, I guess, the wildlife of the past, the preservation of the present, and then I guess the rareness of the future.
Sure.
So do you want to tell us, first of all, about how you got into the hobby to begin with?
Yeah, absolutely. I started designing games 10 years ago. I got a copy of Agricola, and I really enjoyed playing it. And I was like, "This is a lot of fun. I think I could make a game like this." So I designed games for 7 years, and during that time, I was like, I don't want to do a cooperative game though. So all I was doing was competitive because I knew cooperative games take a lot of balance and a lot of numbers, and so I was like, I'm gonna focus on competitive, and then I finally, after 7 years, I was like, you know what, I should just make a co-op, and I made Endangered. It's a cooperative game, and it's got signed by Grand Gamers Guild, and so I should have made a co-op sooner. Yeah.
What kind of games? I mean, what kind of games do you play yourself? I mean, do you play quite regularly? I mean, if with you working on this game,
Yeah.
have you still been able to play games kind of on a week-to-week basis?
Oh yeah, no, I play games all the time. As a designer, you got to know what's out there. You got to know what's current in the market and what's trending. So yeah, no, I really enjoy European style games. I like cooperative games, so it's crazy that I didn't make one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't like take that games that are, screw your neighbor games. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything you've been playing quite recently that you've kind of been enjoying getting to the table?
Well, my favorite game is Sentinels of the Multiverse, which is a cooperative superhero game where each player plays as a superhero and you fight the evil supervillain. So that's my favorite game. Been playing a lot of Small World recently with my son,
right, okay.
my 7-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you go for the big, huge? Because Sentinels recently kind of finished. Well, I guess they said they went on their big kind of. They're like the Rolling Stones. They're saying like this is the big final last ever tour that we're ever going to do, and they kind of produced this huge monstrous box of cards. Did you back it?
I did back that. Yeah, it's the Oblivion Endgame version of their version of Endgame. So yeah, I backed it, and I even bought the $50 box. Like the cards themselves, I think were like $30-$40, but then you could spend $50 to get just a box. It's just an empty box. You put all of your cards in. There's like 2,000 cards that they've released. So,
did you go all in then to take it? You must have. If you're a big fan, you would have just went, man.
I did. Take all my money. Yeah, that was
Race to be number one backer. Here, have all my cash.
Pretty much.
Have you ever met the guys that kind of did Sentinels?
Yep, I had them sign my box of cards, and I met Chris Bedell, and he actually has played Endangered. He gave me some good feedback on it. Yeah, no, it was great. It was like meeting celebrities.
That's so cool. That is so cool because it's like kind of it must have been quite I guess quite kind of scary to say, here's my game. Here's my box. Could you sign it? And he's like, yeah. And it's like, okay. Well, in my other pocket, I've got nothing up this sleeve, nothing up that sleeve, but here, ka-ching! Look, I've got my own game. And was he like saying, yeah, let's have a couple of rounds and see how it plays, kind of thing?
They did, yeah, he did. So, he gave me some good feedback on it. I have different roles in the game. Each player plays as a different conservationist. But back then, all of them were the same. And he recommended, you really need to give some personality and different feel to each of the players. And so it was a great suggestion. So,
cool. What was the thing that kind of drove you to kind of develop games? I know you mentioned about cooperative and competitive games. But do you remember the point where you actually went from being somebody who liked to sit and play games and you went, actually, where's my pen? Where's my white piece of paper? Let's get some stuff kind of written down. Do you remember kind of what kind of made you make that decision?
Well, that's something that I've always done. Any of my hobbies, I like to create. So, when I was younger, I did a lot of reading, and I always would read and read and read, but then I also liked to write. Or I'm a magician, and so I do a lot of magic, and so I kind of made my own magic tricks too. So it's been the same thing all across my entire life, that I started playing board games, really loved board games, and was playing them, and just was like, hey, I really enjoy playing them. I'd like to make my own. So
What you can't see just now is Joseph's obviously mentioning about how much he's into magic and everything like that, and I've just got my head in my hands.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we weren't going to talk about that. We weren't
No,
going
we
to.
can't. I think we have to. It's fine. At some point, I have to actually face my fears. And in all honesty, you're not that scary.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm not
just,
a wizard.
it's good. You're kind of like a magician.
Kind
How
of, yeah.
how did you get into that? I mean, were you the guy that kind of, because I'm picturing it kind of like Christmas 1992 or 1993, right?
It's around there. Yeah.
Yeah. And you go downstairs, you unwrap the kind of the big box, the cardboard box that's got like the 100 top tricks. And rather than do what maybe a lot of kids do, which is you muck around with kind of like the big spongy balls that you get and stuff like that, I can imagine you sitting down cross-legged on your bedroom floor, the instruction manual there, and you going through trick by trick by trick and actually kind of starting to get your craft together. Is that
That was a pretty good approximation. Yeah, I bought a trick just for fun and showed it to some friends. And they're like, "How'd you do that?" And it was I really liked that feeling, and so I got some more and just kept buying magic tricks. So and eventually started making my own, and people were like, "How do you do that?" So yeah, no, it wasn't something I was like actively looking for, but I found something that I loved. So
I mean, obviously, do you specialize in kind of like the close up kind of magic stuff then? Is
yeah,
that
yeah,
in your bag? Yeah.
yeah. I don't have like big giant tricks where you make elephants disappear. I don't have an elephant in my backyard, so
But
yeah, I specialize in close up stuff.
what's that behind you? I'm only joking.
Yeah.
I left my
So card
elephant.
tricks,
Yeah.
card tricks, coin tricks, and stuff like that. So
Is there kind of like a similar? Is the kind of the magic community? I'm not talking about Magic the card game because there's some places even I won't go.
sure.
But in terms of the magic community, is it kind of an awful lot like the board game community that if you're standing from the kind of the outside, you've got very little access to actually kind of what goes on, but as soon as you're in there, you're aware of the kind of the massive kind of world. Because
Oh yeah.
you know,
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, we just like in the board game industry, where we have deck builders and we have cooperative games and we have analysis paralysis. We have our in magicians. We have our own jargon, our own terms. So like you do a double lift, and everybody's supposed to know exactly what that means.
is that kind of cool? I mean, in terms of like inventing your own tricks, do you have to? I mean, is it kind of like, again, is it like you can't copyright mechanics? So you'll see people kind of, I guess, almost copying kind of magic mechanics when they're
Yeah,
creating a trick. People will say, "Well,
yeah.
I've used Valero's kind of double lift here, and if you look, I've got the bill here, and I've subsectioned it and quartered it off, and had the different numbers in the corner. So when I'm doing the trick, it looks like I'm multiplying up the note kind of thing." And they say, "Oh, that's
Mhm.
great because he does it on this card." So you kind of copy, because I find different hobbies fascinating, which is why I'm asking you about it. So I'm just, but
No,
I'm
yeah,
kind of,
absolutely. There's definitely a lot of things where people will use parts of each other's tricks. It's a little more antagonistic, a little more like, "Hey, you can't steal my idea," versus the board game industry where we have tons of different deck builders out there, and we have tons of different drafting games, and no one really gets upset. Instead, people are like, "Well, I liked that game.
yeah,
Are there more games out there like it that I can see?" It's not quite the same, because in Magic community, if I make an elephant disappear one way, the audience doesn't say, "Oh, I liked that." Are there other magicians that make elephants disappear different ways? No, it's yeah.
Do you
Oh,
have Euro elephants
yeah,
disappearing? That
exactly.
looks like distinctly an Ameritrash way of disappearing an elephant, if you
Yeah.
don't mind.
I would like to see an Ameritrash
I bet,
version
yeah.
of that elephant
I-
disappearing.
is there therefore a kind of a Monopoly version of a magic trick,
Monopoly version of an elephant disappearing.
or just a magic
Yeah.
trick in general that people like? Because Monopoly, people like go, "Oh yeah, I like Monopoly because that's just like the worst." Is
Well,
there the kind of
actually,
number? Is there a trick like that?
there are a lot of classic tricks, like tricks that have been done for a very long time, and people are like, "Oh, I've got my own twist on the linking rings, or my own twist on cups and balls," which are two of the oldest tricks in the book. But Monopoly is a game that's been played since the 1930s. So we have a lot more modern games these days, which most people consider better. This is the same in the Magic community. Most people like the new stuff.
Yeah. But do you have to kind of start off by learning the old stuff?
You
I mean,
do, yeah.
I can't imagine a game. I mean, I guess in a game design sense, it wouldn't be the case that you'd say, "Well, how good a game designer is he?" Well, Jamie Stegmaier designed 15 Monopolies before he started doing his own games, kind of thing. I take it that it's a slightly different. You wouldn't get the guy
Absolutely.
walking in trailing the elephant behind him on his first day and go,
No,
"Hey
no,
guys,
certainly not.
kind of like a craft." Um, has have the two disciplines kind of linked at all? I mean, does it help with you having to be, I guess with magic it is kind of practice, 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 practice,
Mhm.
which has
Yeah.
patience involved in it. Have you found that you've helped kind of develop your patience knowing that results can maybe take a longer time in order to make them kind of perfect themselves?
Yeah, with game design, you definitely need some patience. I've been working on Endangered for 4 years, but yeah, you play test it and test it and test it with your family um, until it's good. So uh, I haven't really they haven't really overlapped too much.
Hmm.
I mean, uh, magic, like learning magic, has definitely taught me how to cheat really well. But I don't cheat when I play. If anybody's listening to this, I don't cheat when I play games.
Joseph
So just
definitely cheats when he plays.
no, no, no.
Definitely so do. Look at your little cheating face. You're
Come
a
on.
cheat. Um,
Well, Endangered is a cooperative game. If you want to cheat at a cooperative game,
and
that's your
everybody wins.
group's
Everybody wins.
prerogative. Yeah.
Um, the first idea that you had for Endangered, I mean, how much does it differ from its current form? I mean, is it
Yeah.
if you completely kind of unrecognizable between the first idea and what you're bringing
Um,
to Kickstarter?
It hasn't changed that much. My first scenario I put together was the Black Rhino scenario, and that one is probably down the road as an expansion. So the Kickstarter April 2nd is going to be for the Tiger scenario, the Tigers and the Sea Otters. So definitely the scenarios are all different, but it's always had a worker placement feel to it. It's always had different scenarios. It's always had different conservationists. So it hasn't changed drastically, but I've tested it many times, tweaking this and that and the other thing. So one of the best things to do with a game when you're designing it is stop designing it and set it aside for a while, and then you come back to it later. And I've definitely done that. You set it aside and then you come back to it, and that thing that you're like, it has to have this, you're like, well, you come back to it a month later, you're like, well, why does it have to have that? And then you
Yeah,
fix that. So
you got to have confidence to kind of be able to critique yourself
oh yeah, oh
in your design.
absolutely.
And do you do that through kind of like, did you take, did it become the case, were you taking kind of like Endangered along to groups? And did it become, oh, we're bringing Endangered this week, and folk were like, oh, okay, we'll play it? Or, I mean, did you have kind of like, because I mean, it's important. I mean, let's face it, a lot of games that I play maybe once or twice. I mean, there's exceptions that come out, like
Mhm.
say Root, for instance, GKR heavy hitters. I've played a lot of Ashes, but a lot of the games I know that a lot of people play, they're only playing like once or twice. So do you almost have to have like a set of people that you can depend on who are willing to set that time aside to help you kind of play test and improve the game?
Yeah, I've got a little bit of both. I have a playtest group that I regularly test with every month with a couple of designers. But I have also played it with friends and family and a lot of people at conventions. So I often get people that are like, "Yeah, I want to play this again." So I've got over 100 games that I've recorded so far for it. So yeah, so we've played it many times, and the game has a lot of replayability. There's several different characters, each with different abilities that you can select at the start of the game. There's a couple of different scenarios with different difficulty levels. So when you have something like that, it's kind of like testing many games and like building many games at once.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I know where you're coming from. I've got a couple games on my shelf that I've played once and not gotten back to.
Yeah, I think I was talking quite recently to someone about the kind of the value proposition of a board game, and that there's a lot of games I know people kind of will invest quite heavily regarding Kickstarter, and then they'll play it. They'll get maybe they'll play it for a total of like 4 or 5 hours. So it's actually cost them about $20 an hour, for what they've kind of played so far. With the game being about, obviously about kind of like endangered species, how important was it for you to kind of get the feel in terms of the pictures of the animals and the art and stuff like that? Did you have that quite early doors, or was that something that you had kind of like, your standard kind of clip art, here's a picture of a koala kind of thing, or?
Sure. So for our final copy, Beth Sobel and Ben Flores did the art, and they did an amazing job. The game is really beautiful. Yeah, we had a difficult time making sure that we were able to find someone who was able to produce something that was fairly realistic, but not too realistic. We definitely don't want it to be cartoony. And I think Beth Sobel and Ben Flores, they did a great job. My prototype, I didn't draw like stick figure animals or anything. I'm not an artist, so for all of my prototypes, I just go on Google and I just steal all the art. So
I could just imagine, what you want to save this tiger. It's like, I think it's probably better let that one die, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just a stick figure. Yeah. No, I actually went and used like real pictures and just put them on my cards and then printed them out. So for my prototype anyway.
Let's talk about gameplay. Let's talk about the game. I mean, we've been talking about everything else. 25 minutes in is standard. What I do. Get round to it eventually. I'm sure that you want a break from explaining about the gameplay. You're going to go through a lot of this over the next couple. No, but in all seriousness, I mean, do you want to tell us about kind of like the gameplay, how it plays, the general mechanics behind kind of Endangered?
Yeah, so Endangered is a dice placement game, and during the game, you're going to be placing your dice onto the cards in order to do lots of different actions that allow you to move the animals around and clean up the deforestation. You collect some money, give influence to the different ambassadors. In order to win the game, you have to influence the UN to pass a resolution to save that species. And so you're going to be giving influence to the different ambassadors through those actions. I said it was dice placement, so you roll your dice and then place them on the different actions. And in a normal worker placement game, if someone takes that action, that's it. No one else can take it.
Yeah.
And in this one, if someone has taken that action, you can also take that action, but your die has to roll higher than the dice used by your ally. So you can use the same action many different times as long as you are going up in pips each time. So it's kind of a twist on a worker placement game. So
I've not seen that before. I've seen like Steampunk Rally, where you're
Mhm.
using like pips on the dice in order to build your little engine, so you can then buy other dice that you can then roll again and stuff like that as well. But I've not seen it used in a kind of a hierarchical sense where it's like, well, if you take a spot and you've got a 6, then
Oh yeah, you've blocked it. No one else can use that spot. Yeah.
that's kind of cool. Was that something you had in from the beginning, or was it something that you kind of brought in
No,
slowly?
no, that one came from the publisher. Originally, it was I had just workers numbered 1, 2, and 3, and you
Mhm.
just had to place your worker. And um, we ran into a couple of issues. So where you could have an alpha player who's telling everybody you need to do this, this, and this, and they can plan out 3 or 4 turns ahead of time. And so the publisher Grand Gamers Guild, they made Artemis Project, and that's a dice placement game, competitive. And they said, well, what if Endangered was dice placement? And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. It actually fixes that situation because the alpha player can tell you what to do on your turn, but then they don't know what's going to happen next turn. So really, it becomes more of a discussion of, well, what should I do right now? What's my best option? And it really boils down to like 3 or 4 choices. So the alpha player's situation is a lot less severe in this case. It ends up being more of a, should I do one of these 3 or should I do this one? So
Yeah. What was it like handing over the game to like the Grand Gamers Guild? I mean, obviously you're kind of clutching it like that, and take care of it. Take
yeah,
care of
no,
it.
I've been this will be my first game that's published, and so I've talked to a lot of different publishers. But Grand Gamers Guild, they've been awesome. They're right near me, which has been helpful for like communication and stuff. But also, they've been really open to any kind of development that I've offered. And I found out that later that that's not always a normal game designer publisher relationship. A lot of publishers have their own developers. They take the game and they're like, all right, designer, you go do your thing. We're gonna work on this game now. And no, Mark from Grand Gamers Guild, he's kept me in the loop on all of the process of things, and so I've done a lot of the development work myself, actually.
So it's going to hand the challenge back to you. It's like it's kind of challenging you on the design decisions that you originally made, and said, okay, if you had to do it a different way, how would you do it? And kind of giving you a kind of bit of a pushback. In this situation, I guess it kind of brings back a little bit of the extra kind of excitement again. If all of a sudden something kind of ding, and you go, oh, I
Yeah.
can do this, and this kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. They said, why don't you do dice placement? I was like, oh, that's a great idea. We're going to do that. So yeah, no, it's been good.
How long does it take to play a game? I mean, how many rounds have you got? How many sessions and stuff
Sure.
like that have you got?
The number of rounds depends on the number of players. And so with fewer players, you play more rounds. And so with more players, you play fewer rounds. So the gameplay ends up being about the same regardless of the player count. So you end up playing for about 60 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere between 60 to 90 minutes. So when I first started designing, I designed like big, huge games, and they took like 3 hours, and it was impossible to get anyone to sit down and play. So
Yeah.
the development cycle was very slow with that size of a game. And then I started to designing games that only took an hour, and it's much easier to convince people to sit and play it. So it ramps the design process up quite a bit.
You got quite a few games kind of sitting in the background. I mean, is there like a
Yeah.
folder behind you that's kind of got I know there's not a folder behind you. It's it's an NFT type.
Yeah.
thing.
I've got several different games that I've been working on. Actually, I have another game that's signed with another publisher. So that's going to be coming out later this year. It's called Pew 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 Pew. So that's going to be through Academy Games.
And what's that?
It's a dexterity flicking game, so it's very different from Endangered. You move your little guys around collecting weapons and shooting each other. So we have a couple of different modes. It's mostly competitive, but we've got a cooperative mode. We've got King of the Hill mode, and all kinds of stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Color me interested over the dexterity.
Yeah.
So, I must admit, I am terrible at dexterity games. I'm absolutely dreadful. In fact, if you ever are looking to play a dexterity game with someone, then you should definitely play a dexterity game with me, because I'm just awful. However, I do like flicking no fingers and just playing games. So it's I'll be interested to see. Is that in terms of getting the games out there? Then I mean, you've obviously gone one publisher, you got an academy,
Mm-hmm.
Grand Gamers Guild. Was that the plan? I mean, did you look at kind of like Kickstarter and go, no, I'm going to go somewhere else?
No, so I've been designing for 10 years, and I've always said I don't want to self-publish for my first game. I know there's things that I don't know, and so I've learned quite a lot going through these two publishers about working with artists and the printing and the distribution process. And so maybe down the road I might do self-publishing, but no, I've said for my first game, I know it's going to be a ton of work, and I know there's things that I don't know. So it's been helpful going through a publisher. It's been great. Both of them have been good.
Well, I guess the other thing is as well is you're going to Kickstarter for the first time. Otherwise, and at least otherwise, if Grand Gamers Guild are going to be putting this under their banner, it means that the first thing they do is they're going to send a message to everybody who backed the Artemis project and says, "Hey guys, here's our new project for you," kind of thing. And I see that an awful lot more. I see a lot of first time self-publishing guys struggle in the kind of the Kickstarter kind of ecosystem now, and I have seen a lot of guys kind of hitching on to, well, again, obviously Grand Gamers Guild, but I mean, I mentioned Alley Cat Games a lot. That seems to be kind of their publishing kind of model, is that they now seem to have they're bringing in a lot of designers and just, developing their games further and then kind of putting them out through the kind of the Kickstarter kind of platform, which is kind of cool. Have you, I was going to say, you probably have though. Have you thought about prices for, what the pledge levels are going to be? I mean, what's the price of entry?
So Endangered is going to be $60. It's about the same price, $60 US, be about the same price as their previous game, Artemis Project. They did a really good job with that previous game. They made it look beautiful. The components are awesome. So it's a little more expensive than some of the games that are out there, but there's a lot of content in Endangered, and they're looking at a lot and making sure that the components are really nice. So, yeah.
How big is the box? Is it this big or is it this big?
It's probably the first one. It was like 12 inches by 12 inches. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You just realize it's like, there's no point in me saying that because nobody can see.
Nobody can see how big you're holding your hands apart.
It's just a secret between you and me how big your game box is going to be. Yeah, so it's kind of like standard kind of Kallax.
Yeah,
Kallax fitting. Other shelving units are available. That's kind of cool. I take it as how many dice are you going to get in the game?
Let's see, 17 dice. And each player gets their own 3 dice, and there's a couple other dice for like offspring if you get babies, and so 17 dice. We have one of the stretch goals is for another conservationist. So if we hit that stretch goal, it'll be 3 more, so we'll get up to 20. So yeah, quite a few.
Cool. Pretty cool. Did you have a discussion about the actual funding goal as well? I mean, is it quite a reasonable size kind of funding goal considering you've got kind of like dice in there, or?
Yeah, our base funding goal is $30,000. We've got 8 or 9 stretch goals. No, that's another reason that going through a publisher that has Kickstarter experience has been great. He was able to look at it and say, all right, well, here's how much it's going to cost to produce. Here's how much to make sure, that we're going to not lose money on this. $30,000 is our goal. And I was like, that sounds good. I learned something.
Exactly. So it's fair enough. Here, let me write that down. 30.
Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah.
Is it made you kind of, in terms of kind of like going forward, are you likely to kind of stay? It sounds like you've had a really, really positive experience dealing with Mark anyway. So is that kind of made you think, well, actually, I'm going to pass my games to them first, give them kind of first look before, or
every publisher has their own line, their own niche in the market, and so I did not show my dexterity game to him first. He doesn't have a dexterity game yet, and I'm not sure that he's looking for it. But if you're a designer and you're trying to figure out which publishers that you want to talk to, it's important that you ask them, what kind of games are you looking for, and make sure you look at what kind of games they have in their line. But yeah, as far as like other games that I have, I've shown a few of them to Mark. We have plans for several different expansions for Endangered. So yeah, it's been great having that relationship and being able to talk about the future, talk about games that we could do down the road. So,
would you cross over and do a kind of a Magic board game?
I've thought about it.
About kind of elements.
Yeah, I've thought about it, and what it always boils down to is I'm like, well, you're just doing Magic. You're just who's best at tricking the other player, who's best at, who's best at, well, I guess lying and cheating. So that's all I'm doing. I'm doing Magic. I'm just
heard it here first. Anyone involved in Magic is a liar and a cheat. I mean, it sounds like things are going to go going well. As we say, the campaign starts April 2nd, and runs. Is it a 28-day campaign? How do you know how long?
Through April 26th.
All right, 24 days. Roughly about 24 days. That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Obviously, what we'll do is we will, at the time, we will make sure that the link to the Kickstarter campaign is, in the show notes, so that people can find it. But if people are interested in keeping an eye on your good self, where do you exist on the internet webs?
Sure. I'm on Twitter at Average Joe Games. That's AVJOEGAMES.
Okay.
You can also find me on Board Game Geek. I'm Joe Magic Man on Board Game Geek. So I'd love to talk about Endangered or talk about game design or Magic, whatever you want to talk about is fine.
Have you kind of got other podcasts and stuff like that lined up then? I mean, are you kind of like doing the kind of the Bradley Cooper kind of A Star Is Born kind of tour around the media outlets kind of thing?
Yeah, I've talked to a couple of different podcasts so far. Talked to Inquisitive Meeple and Playability.
Yeah. Is it kind of strange actually having to get out there as a kind of probably somebody who's like quite happy to kind of I know you do the kind of the face-to-face kind of Magic, close-up Magic kind of thing, but is it kind of a bit different actually having to go out there and kind of like I've got to promote my game and talk about designing and answer all the questions kind of thing?
Yeah, no, it's different, but I enjoy it. I enjoy talking about it, and I enjoy being in front of an audience, so it's good.
And if people want to catch your shows, I take it, do you do shows in the local area? I mean,
yeah, I mean, I do birthday parties and stuff. Yeah,
cool. That's kind of cool. And okay. And what's your Magic Man kind of title? What's your magician's title?
Joe Magic Man. I am Joe Magic Man.
Yeah. You are Joe Magic Man. That's fantastic. He did, in all fairness, Joe did a trick earlier on, and it was pretty cool. He did do a trick. It's pretty cool. what we'll do is we'll put the links in the show notes, so we've got notes to show. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, and we appreciate every single person who listens for whatever reason. Thank you very, very much. It's all thanks to people who support us and who listen and who spread the word. You can find us on Twitter at We're Not Wizards. You can find us on Facebook at We're Not Wizards. You can find us on our website, which is we'renotwizards.com. You can read reviews and previews and general silly rants on our blog, which is we'renotwizards.blogspot.com. We've got YouTube, because we do videos, because we're daft. But you can also catch us on all the podcast catchers, your Stitchers, your Spreakers, your Acasts, your Podknives, your Podbeans, anything with the word pod, anything with the word cast, you will find us there. If you want to chuck us a buck and help us keep the lights on, we've got our Patreon. If you like us, then please consider going to Apple Podcasts and dropping us a rating or a review or a subscription. Subscriptions are fantastic. If you're giving us a rating or a review, don't give us 10 stars because it makes us big-headed. But don't give us 1 star because it makes me cry. And not even magic from Joe himself could make this person a less ugly crier. Give us something in the middle, like a 5, because it's average. And we're just a little bit average. But the person who's not being average tonight is the rather wonderful, the rather fantastic, rather magical Mr. Joe Hopkins. Thank you very much for coming on, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was fun.
And there's only 2 more things to do. I can't even ask this question. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Joe?
No, we're not wizards.
There you go. He's not a wizard.
No.
Astounding. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Joe. Say goodbye, Joe.
Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe. Roll 6s. And by the time you're listening to this, you should take a jump over to Kickstarter, where you can roll some dice, bring in some legislation, and save those animals that are all endangered. But until the next time, goodbye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.